Behind the golden gates of Windsor Castle, the British royal family is bracing for impact. More allegations, more revelations, more shame. Prince Andrew, the Queen's favorite son, the man once called Randy Andy by the tabloids, thought his nightmare was over. He was wrong. Sources inside the palace are whispering about new bombshell allegations that could make everything we've already learned seem like just the beginning. Allegations so damaging that senior royals are asking a question they never thought they'd have to ask. Can the monarchy survive this? This is the story of a scandal that refuses to die, a family that can't escape its darkest member, and revelations that may finally bring the House of Windsor to its knees. To understand how catastrophic this moment is, you need to know who Prince Andrew once was. Born in 1960, Andrew was the dashing young prince who had it all. As the second son of Queen Elizabeth II, he wasn't burdened with the crushing weight of future kingship like his older brother Charles. He was free to be charming, adventurous, reckless even. In 1982, Andrew became a war hero. He flew helicopters during the Falklands War, earning genuine respect and admiration. When he returned home, Britain celebrated him. He was handsome, brave, royal, the complete package. The tabloids loved him. Randy Andy, they called him, documenting his relationships with beautiful women, his playboy lifestyle, his lavish parties. Back then, it seemed harmless. Cheeky. Just a young prince sowing his wild oats. But beneath that glittering surface, something else was happening. Andrew was cultivating relationships with wealthy, powerful men around the world. Businessmen, financiers, people who could offer him the lifestyle he craved. Private jets, luxury yachts, exclusive parties in exotic locations. One of those men was Jeffrey Epstein. The mere mention of that name now sends chills down spines worldwide. Epstein, the convicted sex offender, the predator, the monster who ran a trafficking network that exploited vulnerable young girls. And Prince Andrew was his friend. Not just an acquaintance. Not someone who met him once at a party. A friend. Someone who stayed at Epstein's mansions. Someone who flew on his private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express. Someone who was photographed with his arm around the waist of Virginia Giuffre, then just 17 years old. When Epstein was first convicted in 2008, Andrew didn't distance himself. In fact, he was photographed with Epstein in New York in 2010 after the conviction, walking together in Central Park like nothing had happened. That decision would come back to haunt him. November 2019. Prince Andrew made a decision that his advisors would later call catastrophic. He agreed to sit down with BBC journalist Emily Maitlis for an interview about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew believed he could explain everything, clear his name, put the rumors to rest once and for all. Instead, he gave one of the most disastrous interviews in royal history. For 49 excruciating minutes, the world watched as Andrew offered explanations that defied belief. He claimed he couldn't have been with Virginia Giuffre at a nightclub in London on the night she alleged because he was at Pizza Express in Woking with his daughter. Pizza Express. In Woking. The detail was so specific, so bizarre, it became instant meme material. He said he couldn't have been sweating at the nightclub, as Giuffre described, because he had a medical condition from the Falklands War that prevented him from sweating. A condition that, conveniently, had since resolved itself. He showed no empathy for Epstein's victims, no remorse for his association with a convicted predator, no understanding of how his words would be received. "I don't remember that photograph being taken," he said, when shown the infamous image of him with his arm around teenage Virginia Giuffre, with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice, smiling in the background. The public reaction was immediate and brutal. "He's lying," said body language experts analyzing every twitch, every glance away from the camera. "Delusional," wrote commentators. "Tone-deaf," said crisis management professionals who couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Within days, Andrew was forced to step back from royal duties. Not temporarily, permanently. The Queen's favorite son was effectively banished from public life. But the nightmare was just beginning. In August 2021, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil lawsuit against Prince Andrew in New York. She alleged that Andrew sexually abused her on 3 occasions when she was 17, at Ghislaine Maxwell's London home, at Epstein's New York mansion, and on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. Andrew denied everything. His lawyers launched an aggressive defense, trying to get the case dismissed on technicalities, questioning Geoffrey's credibility, arguing about jurisdiction. But the case moved forward. And as it did, the palace descended into panic. This wasn't just about Andrew anymore. It was about the entire institution. King Charles, then still Prince Charles, reportedly had furious confrontations with his younger brother. "You've brought shame on us all," sources claim he said. "This has to end." Prince William, protective of his wife Catherine and his children, was said to be even more direct. He needs to go. Completely. Forever. The public was watching too. Polls showed that over 80% of Britons believed Andrew should lose his royal titles. Protests erupted outside Buckingham Palace. Victims' rights groups demanded accountability. And then, in February 2022, just weeks before Andrew was scheduled to give a deposition, sworn testimony, under oath, where he'd have to answer questions he'd been avoiding for years, something happened. Andrew settled. No admission of guilt, his lawyers were careful to say, but a payment to Virginia Giuffre reported to be around £12 million. Money, many noted, that Andrew didn't actually have himself. The Queen reportedly helped fund the settlement. This allows everyone to move on, palace sources said with relief. Here's what the palace didn't anticipate. Settling a lawsuit doesn't make the truth disappear. In the months since that settlement, more and more information has emerged. FBI files have been released. Court documents from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial have been unsealed. Epstein's flight logs have been analyzed in forensic detail. And Andrew's name keeps appearing. Flight logs show he flew on Epstein's jet at least 11 times, more than he ever admitted publicly. Witness testimonies place him at Epstein properties far more frequently than he acknowledged. Ghislaine Maxwell, now serving a 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking, has reportedly been talking to authorities. What she's saying, we don't know. But sources suggest it's not good for Andrew. There are still sealed documents, reveals one legal expert close to the Epstein cases. Materials that haven't been made public yet. And when they are, there will be more names, more details, more accountability. The palace is terrified of what those documents might contain. But there's something even more frightening on the horizon. Other victims coming forward. Virginia Giuffre was brave enough to speak publicly, to sue, to demand justice. But she wasn't Epstein's only victim. She wasn't even close to being his only victim. Lawyers representing Epstein survivors say they're in contact with multiple women who have information about Andrew. Women who haven't yet told their stories publicly. Women who are considering whether to come forward. The settlement with Virginia Giuffre might have resolved one case, explains a victims' rights attorney. But it didn't resolve the broader questions about Prince Andrew's conduct. And it didn't stop other survivors from seeking their own form of justice. Translation: more lawsuits could be coming. More allegations. More nightmares for the palace. And there's nothing the royal family can do to stop it. Inside the palace walls, the Andrew situation has created fractures that may never heal. King Charles III, who finally ascended to the throne after his mother's death in September 2022, faces an impossible dilemma. Andrew is his brother. They grew up together, shared a childhood in the spotlight. Family bonds run deep. But Andrew is also a massive liability to the institution Charles has waited his entire life to lead. Charles wants a slimmed-down monarchy, explains a royal historian. Fewer working royals, less extravagance, a more modern institution. Andrew doesn't fit anywhere in that vision. Reports suggest Charles has cut Andrew's annual allowance, forcing him to downsize his lifestyle. Andrew was told to vacate the Royal Lodge, the 30-room mansion in Windsor Great Park where he's lived for years, and move to the much smaller Frogmore Cottage. Andrew has reportedly refused. Even in disgrace, even financially dependent on his brother, he's clinging to the trappings of royal life. This defiance infuriates Charles and William. He doesn't get it, says one insider. He still thinks he deserves all of this, that he's entitled to luxury and protection just because he was born royal. Meanwhile, the British public grows increasingly angry. In the midst of a cost of living crisis, with families struggling to heat their homes and feed their children, the idea that taxpayers are funding any part of Andrew's life, his security, his housing, anything, is offensive. Why is he still living in a mansion? Demanded one protester outside Windsor Castle. Why does he still have protection officers? He's not a working royal. He's a disgrace. The pressure is building. From the public, from the media, from within the royal family itself. And now, Whispers from legal circles suggest that something is about to give. There are more bombshells coming, says a source connected to the Epstein litigation. Information that will make what we already know look like just the tip of the iceberg. What could that information be? Some speculate it involves other properties, parties at locations we haven't yet heard about, in countries with different laws, different attitudes toward prosecuting powerful men. Others believe it involves more witnesses, people who saw Andrew at Epstein's properties, staff members, other guests, people who've stayed silent until now but who might be compelled to speak through legal processes. There are also rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, that photographic or video evidence exists beyond what's already been made public. In the age of smartphones and security cameras, it's increasingly difficult to hide. The palace's worst nightmare is simple: that Andrew will be forced to testify under oath in a deposition or trial, where he can't hide behind carefully worded statements and palace lawyers, where he'd have to answer direct questions, where lying would mean perjury, where the whole world would watch. They'll do anything to prevent that, says a former palace staffer. Anything. But what if they can't prevent it? What if the legal processes in motion are bigger than the palace, more powerful than the institution, unstoppable? Here's what makes this scandal so different, so dangerous for the royal family. It's not going away. In the past, royal scandals had a life cycle. The initial outrage, the palace response, the slow fade from headlines. Eventually, the public moved on. But the Epstein case is different. It's not one scandal. It's dozens, maybe hundreds, each victim a separate story, each revelation opening new questions. And in our modern age of 24/7 news cycles, social media, and demands for accountability, there's no moving on. There's no forgetting. Every time Andrew appears in public, even at family events like his mother's funeral, the backlash is immediate and fierce. Every time he tries to rehabilitate his image, the public reminds him, "We remember. We know what you did. We haven't forgiven." The younger generation, especially, is unforgiving. To them, Andrew represents everything wrong with privilege and power, the idea that wealthy, connected men can abuse vulnerable people and face no real consequences. He should be in prison, reads a common sentiment on social media. If he were anyone else, he would be. The fact that Andrew settled rather than face his accuser in court is seen not as smart legal strategy, but as an admission of guilt. You don't pay millions of pounds if you're innocent. That's what people believe. As we speak, Prince Andrew remains in his mansion at Windsor, largely hidden from public view, living a life suspended between his former glory and complete disgrace. He still uses his HRH title privately, though he's been stripped of the right to use it publicly. He still wears his military medals at private events, though he's been stripped of his honorary military titles. He still considers himself a prince, though he no longer serves as one. The royal family can't disown him. He's the king's brother, the late queen's son. But they can't embrace him either, not without destroying their own credibility. So they exist in this terrible limbo, waiting for the next shoe to drop, knowing it's only a matter of time. King Charles is trying to move the monarchy forward, to make it relevant for a new era. But Andrew is an anchor, dragging the institution backward into its worst instincts and darkest associations. And those new allegations? Those bombshells that sources say are coming? We reached out to representatives for Prince Andrew for comment on the rumors of new allegations. We received no response.